Take your seat. We'll get started. My name is Andrew Christofi. I'm the chair of tonight's meeting. Thanks everyone for coming out. This meeting is called by Ramses for the purpose of one purpose really. The topic is to elect the vice president of finance operations instead of having him appointed. And so students would have received an email about 2 weeks ago saying that the meeting would be taking place today. It had the wrong room, and I apologize for that, but thankfully 303 is pretty close to 307, so I'm sure you could all figure out the smell of the pizza. So the motion that we're going to be talking about was moved by John Hutton, Senator on Council, and he gave notice of that on the 24th of September. And then it went to the Board of Operations on October 2nd for their consideration. And then it passed Council on October 8th. And so that's the reason why I'm here today, is because any amendments to the Constitution have to go through Council. But that's the boring stuff. There will be the opportunity to put items on the agenda. I'm sure a lot of you came here and talking about some other things, and that's fine. So students had the opportunity to send the chair an email asking for something to be put on the agenda for today's council meeting. I didn't receive any emails, but I understand that on the back of the handbill there were specific items that were listed as potential agenda items. So students will have the opportunity to add those to the agenda. I'll have a bit more to say about that a little later on. But first, I just want to say that I have no doubt that the discussion that will happen will be very thoughtful and productive and respectful. I don't anticipate having to kick anyone out of here, and I probably won't have to do that. Everyone here has the right to speak, though. So if you have something to say, then we have Mike in the middle here. We also have another roving mic. Or did we have another roving mic, or is it just the mic in the middle, right? Just the mic in the middle. Okay, so you'll have to. And if anyone needs to be accommodated, then we'll get the mic to you. I guess the point is, just raise your hand if you have something to say. I'll try to recognize you by pointing, and I'll keep a speaker's list. And I'll be keeping the speaker's list for the most part. If I recognize someone out of turn, then it'll be for a reason that I explain. Try to stay on topic. There's only one item for discussion anyway. But if there end up being more items for discussion, then I'll just ask you to stay on topic. And if anyone strays from the topic under discussion, then I'll just wait for a natural point in your speech before I politely ask you to stay on the topic. And if it happens again, then I'll probably just recognize the next speaker in line to keep things going. As I said, the only item on the agenda so far is the vote for a constitutional amendment providing for the election of the Vice President of Finance Operations. That motion will be read when we come to it in the agenda. And so, given the start time, unless anyone has any objections, I'm going to suggest maybe 45 minutes for that discussion. Does anyone have any better suggestions in terms of the time limit for that discussion? Yes, Jennifer?
Motion to have a 30-minute discussion with the option of extension.
Okay, so Jennifer wants to have a 30-minute discussion with an option for extension. Does anyone want to second that? Jomel, I see over here. Does anyone want to spend more time or less time on that? If so, this is the time to speak. So does anyone object to having 45 minutes? Or sorry, 30-minute discussion on this? Does anyone object? I think that's how we'll do this, so we don't have to go through a vote. Okay, so let's go 30 minutes for the VPFO discussion. John?
Yeah, so that's one clarification. So the only discussion item was the finance. There's a pamphlet through your hand that says divestment, levy questions, and society elections.
That's right. And so, like I said, it's some section of union policy that says that it has to be sent to the chair. And so, but I didn't get any emails. And so, like I was saying, the only thing on the agenda so far is for the constitutional amendment, and after that, students will have the opportunity to ask questions of the executive. I'm going to recognize people in one. I'm sure you all want to add things to the agenda. Am I right? Or you want to talk about that? I'm going to talk about other stuff. I just want to introduce the executive first. So we have the President, Ramses is here. The Vice President, Student Life, Danny Shanahan. Vice President, Finance and Operations, Mabu Rahman. And Vice President, Internal, Jen Nowosielski. The Vice President, Academic and External, Jacqueline Skitunis, I believe is in the hall. So she'll be here soon. And now I guess I want to ask if anyone wants to add a discussion item to the agenda. And so I have 3 hands. I see William first, William Coney, and then Sir with the hat. What's your name? Jeremy. And then I see John. Okay, so William. For the purpose of allowing anyone who may be watching either now or in the future to be able to hear, yeah, please.
So I was wondering process-wise why there's not been an agenda formally posted before the meeting, well, anywhere on the site and stuff. Just process-wise, it seems like we weren't ever informed besides the motion of any other business or stuff.
Like I said, in order to add something to the agenda, students had the opportunity to send an email to the chair, which is myself, at least 24 hours before the meeting, adding it into the agenda. This was on the website the entire time, and
yeah,
it listed the exact wording of the amendment here. So if you clicked on that, then it showed up. I didn't receive any emails from any students asking for anything to be added to the agenda. I assure you.
Why don't we have an agenda with just that item?
Because it's already posted on the website.
The item is, not the actual.
Yeah, that was the only thing on the agenda.
So, like, it doesn't reflect very well to post just an item without an actual going process.
I don't really know what your complaint is. The only item on the agenda was the only thing that was on the website.
Yes, but you should still give out an agenda to show that.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have something you want to add to the agenda?
Yeah, a lot of people here just showed up at the EMS lecture across the street and don't have a lot of time, but we would love to talk about divestment.
Okay. Does the motion have a seconder? Yeah. Scott? So, yes.
Can we move that forward in the agenda at all?
Yes, where would you like it in the agenda, sir? Depending on how many times it's on, what I'll do is, since we've allocated a half an hour for the VPFO, after all of the agenda items are added, I'll distribute the speaking time for each of the agenda items so that we all get up here 3 hours after we're scheduled to start, which is 9:30. So, and that time can be extended with the consent of everyone here. So we'll move to vote now whether or not to add divestment to the agenda, first in the agenda. And hold on. And it requires a 2/3 majority. So does everyone understand what's going on here? Does anyone not understand what's going on here? Okay, so all those in favor of adding to the agenda, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? This is something I'll be asking after every vote. So if you want to let everyone else know that you didn't agree with some decision that happened, then you can simply ask, you can simply raise your hand after the vote to say, yeah, I want it to be known that I didn't agree to this certain thing. Okay, so we have I can't edit that, hold on. Well, that's first. So are there any other agenda items? I saw John had his hand up, John Hutton. Okay. Are there any other agenda items that people would like added? Any other discussion topics we can talk about? Okay. So seeing none, we'll move to a vote to adopt the agenda as a whole. And so the first discussion will be on divestment, and the second discussion will be on the election of the PFO, and then the third will be a question and answer period for the executive. Does everyone understand what we're voting on here to adopt that agenda? Does everyone not understand what's going on? Okay. So this just requires a simple majority. So all those in favor of adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. So I believe the only thing we have to do is to get started on this divestment topic. And so, yeah. Yeah, so what's going to happen is, I mean, everyone's free to come up to the mic and let us hear what you want to say on divestment. And like I said, I hope that the discussion remains thoughtful and productive. I'm just basically filling in time here while people come up to the mic. I know it's a little daunting being that first guy, but oh look, we have that guy. Well, Jeremy?
Yep.
Have at it.
Sweet. My name's Jeremy. I work with DivestDAL on campus. I'm a firm advocate for divesting. I think DSU should do it, and I wonder why it's a question when it makes sense economically because of a carbon bubble, socially because ethically it's immoral for us to be destroying the land or supporting people who do, and environmentally because I want to have a family that continues living on this planet in a condition similar to the one that I get to enjoy. And I think there's a number of people here who agree. And just as a quick survey, could you raise your hand if you also feel that we should divest? Thanks.
Sorry. It's really tasty pizza. So yeah, I mean, John, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name's John. I sit on the Board of Governors. So I've been working with DivestDAL over the last year or so to try and push forward the DivestDAL campaign. I think it should be clarified for the sake of the room. There's two separate questions of divestment. One is, should Dalhousie divest its endowment of fossil fuels? And the other question is, should the DSU divest its endowment fund worth $2.6 million of fossil fuels? So whether the DSU should divest is what's being discussed tonight, not whether DAL should do it. So after tonight, the campaign still continues. Please stay involved. So, speaking from what my own experience on the board has been, I want to share a very important point that was made this Tuesday at the Board of Governors meeting by George McClellan. He's the chair of the Dalhousie Endowment and Pension Investment Committee. And he said the following: divesting from fossil fuels, there is no evidence that this will put us at financial risk. There is no evidence this will put us in a bad position. There's no conclusion at all. These are his words. So this is not this big risky thing that's going to, put our endowment at risk. This is there's lots of different places where you can invest this fraction of the investment fund, including within the energy sector, such as renewable energy, or you can find something else entirely. There's a lot of options. So really the question is not a financial one, it's a moral one. We're a university. This is an institution that prepares us for our future. So the question is, should we be investing in things that profit from the destruction of that future? Climate change is the most serious challenge facing our generation. We need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. I'm sure some of the people in this room, especially the engineers, will know just how serious a challenge that actually is. We need to do something about this. We need to use every single tool in the toolbox. Divestment is one of those, and I really want to see the DSU show some leadership, and maybe DAL can follow suit. Thank you.
Jessica?
With divestment? Yeah. The whole issue of divestment and like our environment and our future. And if we don't take a stand now and make these changes for our future, there is going to be no future. I mean, I did a comprehensive research project on the Atlantic Ocean, and Boris Worm said that the oceans would be extinct by 2038. And they made him do a rebuttal and put that up there. And the rebuttal was made by large companies. And these large companies, mainly the companies with power and money. And if we don't make this stand against greed, because essentially that's all this is, we have the resources within for renewable and sustainable energy. And am I supposed to, like, never mind, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if it's awkward.
Okay. I seen the other people the other way, so, and this, yeah. So basic, like, There's a really good example of a really good friend of mine explained that one time there's certain types of companies in the world. And some are just based on greed. And that's all they want is money. They don't care about us, they care about anything. And there's other companies that, like, when the owner dies, they give something back to the world. And then there's something else when people give and receive. And if companies give and receive, it creates a friendship. But you can't create a friendship on greed and dependence. So, you know, yes, we should divest. Yes, we should invest in sustainable, renewable energy. Yes, we should think about the future of this world and make a difference for people and stop thinking about what we can put in bank accounts. And I think that's what the companies should realize. Thank you.
I'd ask people to identify themselves if I don't identify them before they speak.
I might just wheel it back here. Try to face both. Hi everyone, my name is James Hutt, and I've been involved with the Divest campaign for a long time now, and I'm really excited that it's on the agenda. We've been working and organizing with students and alumni and supporters over the past year, and through that we've actually engaged 1,800 students and community members, alumni and faculty at Dal, which is almost 10% of the entire student body at Dal. So we've had tons of support. We've seen a lot of people come out, like we did on Tuesday, to the Board of Governors meetings. And I think the DSU can make a really strong stand here, and that can be the piece that helps the Board of Governors make this decision to divest. We know that there's no financial negative or adverse implications from divesting. This is a tried and true path. Stanford has divested its $18 billion fund from coal. We've seen the University of Glasgow with a far greater endowment fund already divest. The Rockefellers divested as part of a $50 billion institution and collaborative fund. So the path is there, it's been proven, and right now we are in a race with Victoria University to see who will be the first school in Canada to divest. We have an incredible opportunity here. Victoria is going to make this decision sometime in January or February, but Dal can be first on November 25th when the Board of Governors meets. And I just think that the DSU can really be the key piece that shows the Board of Governors that this is the right thing to do. If the DSU does it, we can influence the BOG, the Board of Governors, to do the same thing. About almost 20 years ago, in 1986, Dalhousie divested from South Africa because of the apartheid regime and all the evils that were there. And shortly after apartheid ended, Nelson Mandela came out and personally traveled to the US and Canada to thank the student divestment campaigns. And he cited them as one of the biggest things that helped liberate South Africa. So I'm really asking the DSU to help lead the way. Thank you.
Okay, Taylor, go ahead.
Do you have something to say?
Graham.
Perfect. I was actually hoping one of the execs would go right after me. So, hi everyone. My name's Taylor. I'm one of the student senators. And so I echo, especially what James, you said it so articulately. I could not say anything better than that. But I just want to, the history of the DSU and this issue. A couple years ago now, there was a project called C, and it was having these conversations around divestment. Then that project, which was in collaboration with Dal's Investment Society out of the School of Business, that project kind of just fell into the like kind of abyss. So I would like to make a call to action onto the executives to post on the DSU website within the next 2 weeks a plan to rekindle that group or whatever group it may be that is going to be looking at this issue and actually taking action on this issue. So the DSU can set some sort of example, even if it can't fully complete the process before November 25th, but if it can be well on its way to completing the divestment process before the 25th login. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Honestly, it shows the kind of support that every student on campus has for divestment. I'm happy to say that the DSU is strongly committed to investigating every avenue to divest. In fact, we're going to be hiring a commissioner over the next couple of weeks to help us edit our investment policy. And that policy dictates where we actually put our money. I've already had conversations with our investment manager. We're working on a plan to basically withdraw all our funds from our current fossil fuels, and yes, we do invest in the 200 companies that are on the blacklist. And I commit to actually making sure that the DSU, this will be brought to DSU Council. Well, maybe before November 25th, as Taylor Quinn recommended. But I also want to see divestment happen on this campus. And I'll do my best to make it happen, so will the rest of the executive. Would we need your support on that? Please stay strong with divest. We need to keep the pressure on at the Board of Governors level, especially at the next meeting on November 25th. But for the DSU itself, we're fully committed to divesting. It's all up to the council decision, honestly. So please show up and encourage your councillors to reflect your opinion when the vote comes around. So again, we are divestment commissioner positions will be put up. So please apply if you have experience in that area. And Diveststyle is currently, well, I hope they will help us edit our investment policy statements to reflect the fact that we won't invest in it anymore. And after that, yeah.
Did Caitlin have a question, or did you want to say something? Yeah. Sure.
That happens a lot. So my name is Caitlin, and I just wanted to follow up on the past two speakers that have spoken, and I just had some questions about what an approximate idealized timeline would be to see from this meeting if we all vote here that we should divest from fossil fuels in the DSU, what an ideal timeline would be. Hopefully that could go with the November 25th BOG meeting, and what you need from students in that time frame and how we can get involved to see this project go through.
So for that to happen, our policy statement needs to be edited within next week. It should be on the BOG agenda for next Thursday, and it should be on council agenda for November 5th. Or November 19th, because that's still before November 25th, but you know, the earlier the better. So we'll do the best we can to get that policy edited. I mean, I'm sure it'll be in every meeting debate around it, so we have to give, you know, students have dissenting opinions, they should be allowed to voice that. But in terms of our language around our policy, that shouldn't take us too long to draft up. And as long as it all depends on how quickly council can make a decision. So if it's a no-brainer at the November 5th meeting, well, there you go.
Anyone else? Floor is open. We're still talking about divestment here. Is this on? Probably not. See that. I honestly don't. I didn't come prepared. I mean, I'm relying on you guys to, you know, to here. So I don't know. It's not gonna be clean.
So again, please be in touch with your elected representatives. Diveststyle, I need you. We need you for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And please show up at the November 25th meeting. We need at least 300 people in this room again. That honestly adds a lot of pressure. If that's it for this discussion, I'd like to move into the motion to move into the next item for decision, which is the VPFO election. Unless other people have, you know, rebuttals to make or additional comments to add, additional requests.
I mean, as a chair, I don't want to prejudice the ability of people who are not in favor of divestment, the ability to speak. So, yes. And please tell us all your name.
Oh, I'm Josh. Sorry, I don't know if I need the mic. I don't know a whole lot about divestment, so I was wondering if anyone could speak on the fact that alternatives has been invested or there's something more about, just as far as divestment and where that money will go. Does that make sense? Okay, I don't know anything about that.
I just want to talk for
How long would you like it to be? Before we get into the debate, the motion needs a second. Your name, sir? Alexander. So does anyone have any other suggestions as to how much longer we should be talking about this? Would anyone like? We just said 10.
5 minutes.
Is that okay with the second? Would anyone else have another suggestion? A longer period? Yes, sir. Hold on. And your name, sir? Mohammed. So do you have another suggestion? No, I think you agreed to 10 minutes, so Yeah. Or no, 5 minutes. Sorry. Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about how much time we're going to spend talking. Right. So, does anyone object to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes? I want to avoid the absurdity of voting on this, so that's why I'm soliciting your feedback. Yes, sir. Okay. Your name? Okay. Yes, Jim.
Sorry. Just out of respect for your question, Josh, 5 minutes or 10 minutes isn't going to be long enough to go into the complexity of divestment. And I'm wondering if we can just, if DivestDAL in association with the DSU would be interested in organizing an open house where everyone can come together maybe next week and have a full conversation about what divestment means and all the steps that we've gone through thus far, because there's been a lot, and kind of fill everyone in. Can I just get a temperature check from? Great. Okay.
So, given that there's some debate over this, maybe we'll have a vote on 5 minutes. So, unless people have, yes, sir. Well, the motion before the floor is for 5 minutes. So if that fails, then someone can, then discussion will simply continue. Yeah, that's what I would say. So if you want to keep talking, then just vote no. Yeah. So is there any further discussion on that? That's a very good point. And so for that purpose, this mic is removing it. Like we can take it off the. Yes, that is the word. So perhaps I should be the one that's handing out the mic. Yeah. So does anyone else want to talk about? Yes, James.
Perhaps what I can say, just to quickly wrap this up and then talk about an open house later, so we have to avoid conversations about time limits. So next week, we can try to organize an open house, maybe Tuesday, something like that. I'll throw some feelers out, see when we can get volunteers to put this together, circulate it. But quite simply, the process of divestment is the idea that we get the university and the student union to divest its endowment fund from industries that have very large shares of fossil fuel reserves, such as carbon and coal and oil, and actually start reinvesting them in more profitable industries.
See, now we're getting into the merits of this. We're just talking about time limits, okay?
I was hoping to put this to rest and then keep moving.
Right, so that's, okay. So does anyone else want to talk about limiting debate? This is what we're really talking about right now, limiting debate.
Call into question.
Calling the question. So there's no one else on the speakers list unless the individual in the rain jacket with the glasses who is looking down and now looking up. Hello. You had your hand up? Okay. Okay. So seeing there's no further discussion, we'll move to vote whether or not to limit debate on divestment to 5 additional minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Keep your hands raised, please. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Just raise your hand if you want to. Okay, William. Anyone else? You abstained. Anyone else? Okay. So there's 5 more minutes, so we'll cut off debate at 7:43, and I'll invite anyone else to the mic to speak. I see Jeremy again.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment that when divestment was on the menu, this room was packed and full of people because they care about divestment and they want it to happen and they believe it can and should. Yeah.
So we had a definition of divestment a little bit ago, but it actually had the verb. Oh, Peter Smith, sorry. But it had the word divest in it. Can we just make sure that you mention what to divest actually means? Like, I'm pretty sure it means to remove investment from. Okay, that's all. Just wanted to make sure.
Anyone else speak to divestment? Either before or maybe in confusion? Yes, Christine.
Am I allowed to ask a question? I guess. Okay. Do you guys have any examples of the industries Dal is currently invested in? Just to give a clear idea.
Syncrude, Suncor, pretty much every tar sands company, as well as like weapons, armament, and other awful stuff like that. But that's for later conversation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is Mohammed again, and it's just with reference to the fact that this is a university, and one thing it should be promoting is a future, and a bright future at that fact, and the reason we are at a university is to help build a stronger future for ourselves. So, and I was personally in class when I found out about Divestment because I heard them all the way from the LSC, and I could hear them all on Studley in front of the Henry Hicks singing and chanting, and I was brought down there, and that's one of the reasons I'm actually here, is because they seem really passionate, and a lot of students, I've seen the orange armbands, I've seen the buttons, I've seen everything. It's great, and I want to commend you guys for what you've done, and I really hope the DSU is backing Divest in this.
Yes. And your name?
Grayling, Grailin. The whole process of investment, it would be to pull out of the fossil fuel industry and just put the more funding into the local energies and renewable energies, and actually wherever students wanted to be, not democratically put anymore at all. So wherever you put her. Oh, and we have meetings Wednesday night, 7 to 9. Do we have a location yet? Mona Campbell, 1107. There we go.
Anyone else?
Hi everyone, my name is Yazan Matari. I'm a member at large at council. I was just wondering what the executive will do to basically publicize the fact that whenever the vote will be in council in terms of that, how is it going to reach out to students and tell them this is going to happen?
We'll resort to regular channels, of course, social media, email, campus mail, dispatch, Gazette, posters, the like.
Unless someone wants to raise their hand for next. Yes, Ali?
Sorry to do this, everyone. It's a little bit off topic. I just wanted to, I know a lot of people want to leave after the conversation about divestment. And I definitely get that. I get that this meeting is long and bureaucratic and maybe not super fun. I wanted to talk about what's coming up next because I think it's really important that we have people stay for it. Please don't cut me off. Next, we're going to be talking about...
the only reason I'm not cutting you off is because it's 7:43, and now we're talking about the thing that you're talking about, the election of the PFO.
Cool. What we're talking about is whether or not we're going to be electing one of our 5 executives of the student union. It's the VPFO, it's the union that manages a lot of money and operations within council. It's it's not an elected position right now, and there's a motion on the table to elect it, and I think it's really important. Whatever side you're voting on, it's a really important conversation to have. Please don't leave. I think there are more people coming soon also. That's it.
So I saw that Hannah raised her hand. I don't know if you wanted to talk in response to that, or if you wanted to just proceed with the amendment. What was the nature of what you want to say? Okay, so you're calling quorum. Yeah. So the deal is that if we don't have quorum, we can still proceed for discussion. However, when it comes time to a vote, if we don't have quorum, then we can't have a vote. So right now, it doesn't look like we have quorum because there were 79 seats here. Okay, the person who knows that question is ignoring me. That's fine. 79 seats. So we have like at least 5 seats vacant. So I'm going to say we don't have quorum. Yeah. So we can still have a discussion though. And if when it comes time to the vote, we don't have enough, then c'est la vie. So now that we have it properly before students, the assembly, I guess, temperature check. Do people want the motion read or not read? Do people want me to read the motion or not read the motion? Read the motion, thumbs up. Don't read the motion, thumbs down. Okay, so in my opinion, the people who want it to be read prevail. So I'll just read the motion. Whereas the Dalhousie Student Union is a democratic membership-based organization accountable to students, and whereas Dalhousie students pay annual membership dues to the DSU, and whereas the Dalhousie Student Union's Vice President of Finance and Operations is appointed by council at the recommendation of the nominating committee rather than in a general election of the membership, and whereas the Vice President of Finance and Operations makes political decisions regularly and has voting power in the DSU Executive and Council, and whereas most student unions across Canada elect their VPFO or equivalent for a similar set of responsibilities, be it resolved that the Constitution of the Dalhousie Student Union be amended as follows. In addition to Section 2 of Bylaw 4, the addition of subsection here, the Vice President of Finance and Operations, and the deletion from Section 3 of Bylaw 4, subsection A, which provides that the VPFO is appointed by council. So that's it. And at this point, I will solicit individuals to stand and speak to the motion after John, the mover, gives a speech outlining his thoughts on the matter.
Great. Thanks a lot. Again, my name is John. I'm a Board of Government representative on council. So I'll explain why I made this motion. So first is based on a few principles. One is promoting student democracy, promoting accountability and transparency, recognizing that budgets set priorities and therefore no budget is a value-neutral document, recognizing that control over budgets is a form of power and must be accountable to students to the fullest extent possible. That's my motivation for this. And so just to understand how it's currently done in the DSU, the VPFO, unlike the rest of the executive, is selected by council. There's a committee of council called the nominating committee. It interviews candidates after posting a job application, goes through a two-stage process of interviews, and then makes a recommendation to council. And council has to approve it. People can be nominated from the floor, however, to run against that nominated candidate, and often that does happen. So this is what we do instead of an election. A crew of insiders that pick who they think is the best, and then those 4 people on the committee put it to 25 people-ish, and then that's how you decide how to spend $30,000 for the year. I think we can do better. So the reason why it was created an appointed position, not an elected position in the past, was the argument that because it's financial officer for an organization with a lot of money and oversees a couple businesses down in the bottom of the sub, it should be a position that guarantees some sort of technical rigor and experience. You don't want somebody who doesn't know anything about finances running the finances. And so I don't think that elections prevent that from happening. I don't think that the current process guarantees that from happening. And here's why. Here's why the current process lacks that technical rigor. I was on the nominating committee last year that appointed our VP Finance, and he's a great guy, but the process was less than adequate. These were the kinds of questions we asked in our interviews that guaranteed technical rigor. This was produced by staff and has been used in interviews for several years, as far back as I can think. So the questions: what was your most recent supervisor's name? And what would they say your greatest strengths and your greatest weaknesses? I'm sure that has a lot to do with finances. Give an example of a difficult decision you've made at your last job. How did you solve it? Why did you choose that method over another solution? What tools do you use to ensure all deadlines are met? There's 9 of these questions, and then on the 10th question we do a lightning round and finally get into technical stuff. Explain what a bank reconciliation is. Explain what a budget deficit is. Explain what a budget is. What's amortization? What are capital gains? I've passed first year economics, therefore I can be DSU VP Finance. So the process is pretty lacking. The process can do way better. But here's a much more important point, and that is elections do not lead to chaos. Students can actually be trusted with elections. Last winter, the president of our Arts and Social Sciences Society, Caitlin Loeb, did some excellent research on which student unions across the country elect their VP Finance. What was found was that almost every single, except for one, school size of Dalhousie elects their VP Finance. All but one other school in the U15, which I was a member of, also elects their VP Finance. So we stand out as an undemocratic outlier. This is not, like, it's totally not normal that this position would not be elected. In the perspective that appointing it, not elected, would cost us technical rigor, I just don't think that's true. DAL has a huge pool of students that are taking accounting, economics, math, finance, business, management. And there's also students in other disciplines that have business experience that could be very qualified for this job. It's not like we're lacking adequate candidates for this job. It's not like students seeing somebody that's clearly not adequate for the job running, they're not going to vote for them. We don't do that with any other level of government, arguably. So, here's the question. Can the process be reformed instead of having elections? That's a fair question. So their options could be making better interview questions, which case we need to make sure that the insiders asking the questions also have the same high level of experience, which is not guaranteed. Another option that was proposed to me by another counselor from the Commerce Society suggested that the VPFO should be a staff position, a non-voting one, rather than an officer of the union. But again, it brings the question up about student accountability, democracy, control of our own finances. I just don't think that's a good option. Another option that was floated, which I actually like, was that candidates for the VPFO would be asked a set of questions that are technical and they'd be posted online during elections, which we still have. I think that's a great idea. But really what it comes down to is a simple and inescapable fact. Not electing the VP Finance is highly undemocratic. It's really, really worrying. It sends the message that the DSU does not trust students to vote on anything money-related. It contributes to the idea that the DSU is an exclusive, elitist clique of students and not accountable to students. And I can't think of a better argument for that perspective than the fact that we don't elect our VP Finance. For us to be a truly representative union and inclusive as an organization, our members must be part of the most important decisions. Anything less than general elections is insulting to DAL students. And so I say this reform is long overdue. Let's get it done. Thanks.
Thanks, John. So before I recognize Suzanne and anyone else, I just want to mention that this is an opportunity for students to raise questions for John or anyone else, to make comments about the amendment, to raise criticisms, or to suggest amendments. All of that is the proper subject of debate. So now I'll hand the floor to Suzanne.
Hi, everyone. I guess you already know my name now. So the biggest question here, in my opinion, when it comes to this motion is whether or not an elected person can handle the technical aspects of it. And I think, as John has shown, we can trust students to make the right decision in that regard. But even so, my understanding from my conversation with the current VPFO is that what happens is that the VPFO supervises the employed staff members who handle the technicalities. And so the way I see the VPFO is as someone who should give students the voice and should, I guess, add that supervision part and student accountability. And the best way to do that is to have the VPFO as an elected position.
As people are raising their hands, I'm just taking note of their names. I'll recognize Jacqueline now. And please remind me of your name, sir. Peter, and you had your hand up, Mohammed? Okay, and I have you as well. Was there anyone else whose hand I missed? Yes, Jessica. Okay, thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline. I'm the Vice President Academic and External currently. My first question, to kind of maybe point out, make this kind of personal for everyone, who just voted about Divest DAL? I want to know who voted positively and who was against it. Anyone in the room, really? Raise your hand. You just voted for Divest DAL, right? What, sorry. Did you agree with it? Did you think it was a good thing? You listened to it. It made sense to you, right? It was a topic of discussion. It was. The point here, what I'm kind of getting at, is that you had an opinion on it, right? You thought that your money should be put in one place because you don't support something like fossil fuels. Or you were thinking, no, this is going to financially affect me. This money is important. We need to support companies like Shell and Suncor because they give me my scholarships or they build my buildings, things like that. So what you inherently thought was political. Your money is political. Where you want it, what you do with it is political. And if you don't vote for people who are handling your money, you're saying that whoever gets into that position, by someone else's decision, by whatever mode of operandus, you're not taking control of those politics. You're not making a decision for yourself and for your money. You pay money to this union every year. I suggest that you put yourselves in a position where you still have a bit of control over it. You have some say at some point in what happens to it. So I want to kind of get in your head that whether or not you think that it's something that, you don't see the connection, there is a connection. That's just really important to me, and to maybe like bring it back to everyone in the room. Thank you.
I'll remind everyone that debate is scheduled to end at 8:14, and I'll recognize Caitlin Lowe.
So first of all, I would like to credit Jacqueline and Taylor Quinn, who last year we tried to put this motion through, and they did a lot of tireless research on it that has been used to bring forward the motion again. I would also like to say that the VPFO, in fact, as one of the 5 executive members, represents all students, regardless of whatever meeting, whatever event or function they are attending. They embody us in their actions and their decisions. Furthermore, the DSU VPFO does more than just do the budget and do audits. He sits on a variety of committees, such as Society Review Committee and Grants Committee. In this, as an executive, he is representing all students when we're making decisions at these committees. If you don't elect a person that you feel you can trust with being accountable to students, if you don't elect someone who shares your views and where you think money should go and how much of it should go to students and what we should do with it, then you really lose out on so much because you have a council of approximately 40 people making that decision for you. This motion would give all students the ability to pick the person that not only handles their money, but represents them in a variety of forms.
Before I recognize Peter, just tell me your name, sir. Yes. Pardon? Harris? Okay, thank you. I'll recognize Peter. No. I'll recognize Peter. So I've just added you to the speakers list. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, there's 5 on the speakers list now after Peter. So please, sir.
So I'm speaking from a position of some naivety here, so I'll have to apologize. But people seem to be talking as if the council that's doing this appointing is some sort of arcane gang of insiders. But aren't they elected? If we don't believe that elected officials can represent us, what's the point of electing another official?
So Peter, you can essentially choose to answer the question or not. That's all I want to say.
I don't know the answer to that, but seriously,
perhaps you could remind me of the question. Oh, whether it's elected or not. Right. So the executive are all elected by the student body. There are a couple dozen faculty representatives who are appointed by the respective faculties, like arts, sciences, etc. And then you have a couple of other representatives who are members at large who are appointed by council, and other representatives of constituencies like the Black Students Community or the Aboriginal Students Community, and they're appointed by their respective societies as well.
So essentially what it seems to be is that it is representative of the student body, but except there's also some additional weight given to people working with the university relevant to certain groups that we recognize might be outweighed by direct and this doesn't seem to feel like a gang of insiders to me. This seems to be like a representative mechanism, and I think it might be appropriate. I mean, I'm speaking from a position of naivety, really, truly, but I felt that the tone that it was going on talking about the current appointment mechanism was just a little bit off base. That's all. Thank you.
So I'll recognize Mohammed.
Okay, this is actually my first DSU meeting, so I'm gonna try and not be as naive as possible. So one of the things, yeah, I stole your word. I'm sorry. One of the things I'm going to honestly say is whether or not we do vote for we should be trusting in our university. I appreciate that we should be trusting in our executive since we did vote for them. But the VPFO, if he does have a vote on behalf of the students and he is part of sits on the student union, or she, sorry, I mean they, since they are voted by the students, they should be technically voted for by the students. They should be someone who the students have picked. Now, regardless of whether the person is some financial background or not, they should be doing that during their campaign. Isn't that what the campaign is for? So, and then we should be trusting in our fellow students that to vote for someone who has financial experience, someone who is willing to represent the student body, and we should be able to trust ourselves, not just have. And I speak this from experience in a situation where back in high school, we had our school president was actually 50% of the votes came from teachers, and students didn't actually like him, or nor was he successful, and he didn't have any student support. So I'm thinking if the VPFO is selected by the students and and does represent the student body properly, then they would actually get more support. And I'm speaking this. I've been here. It's my second year at Dal, and I'm not being a horrible person, I think, but I've heard a lot of students say they don't have faith in the DSU anymore. And I'm going to go out ahead and say it. I'm not being disrespectful at all whatsoever. I mean, no disrespect by it. But it has happened. It has been said. And I really want the DSU, as the student union, representing the student body, to actually get the respect and fall back into play with the students. Have the students have faith in their student union once again. Thank you.
I'll recognize Jessica.
I've been involved in the Dalhousie Student Union for a number of years. I have a lot of institutional knowledge. I think I've ran in 4 DSU elections. I've watched things really unfold at the student union. I have, and I always will, believe in the DSU. The DSU is for the students, and this is what I personally believe. The elected members that sit on council represent the student body. And I have to say that my short time of being a counselor was a very honorable position, and I was elected to represent the student body. And I took a lot of pride, I took a lot of integrity, and I talked a lot about transparency. And to have the VPO finance position elected is a very progressive and transparent move for the student union. Then all of our members that sit on the student union will be elected by our students and represented by our students. And that's the way it should be. That's what I believe. And then the students have a voice. And in ECHO, there's been a lot of different controversy on rebuttals for, why we shouldn't have the VP finance, for technicalities, or the DSU has a finance department. We have staff that work at that full time. I've worked here. Also, too, there's the DSU hired charter accountants to do the book. It's a very complicated process. So having the VP of finance be able to reach out to students and have more, not be stuck in an office, and actually have time to reach out and talk to students and explain that value that's in our institution and the value of transparency to where the students' money is going is a very good thing. So that's my opinion, and I thank you, and I thank the executive for being here too as well. Thank you.
I'll recognize Hannah, and I see Michael and Ellie as well.
All Right. So I have some concerns with this motion. Primarily, I think that it is really important that our VP Finance has strong technical background and is capable of handling a huge budget the DSU has. I think if you put it to an election of the general membership, I mean, this isn't exactly a great indication of our interest from students in having a vote. I think when you put things, if you put this to a general election, it's very likely that someone who has more personal skills and is well spoken and do a very good campaign will get voted rather than someone who has the background that's necessary for this position. I also think that a lot of this discussion has been about you want to have a say in your budget and you want to be able to say who the VP Finance is. I think that just because you don't elect your Vice President Finance doesn't mean you don't have any say in where your money goes. The Vice President Finance doesn't independently make all monetary decisions in the union.
Before I recognize William, please remind me of your name, sir. Tevin? Okay, did I see another hand? No, okay, I'll recognize William then. No. I had you after. You're about 7 people down. Yeah. No, I was just recognizing you just to say that I saw your hand. Sorry. So I'll recognize William.
Okay. I'm just wondering. So, with all this talk of electing a VPFO, and changing it from the current format where it's an official who's brought forward by a nominating committee but is elected at council, why is this separate from the issues facing any elected position by council onto council? Isn't that just as bad as having any legislative body elect its own membership? So, I mean, yes, it's very clear that the VPFO should be, at least I personally agree with this, but at the same time, I'm also wondering why aren't we doing this for every elected position, every council elected position to council?
I'll recognize Harris. Oh, perfect. I have Mabu is next.
So I'm Mabu. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Operations, and all they are talking about my position. So I think. So I was elected by a process. I went to the nominating committee. Unfortunately, nominating committee didn't nominate me, but the council voted for me, so I'm here. I'm lucky to be here, enjoying the job, but for my understanding, it makes more sense to have a Vice President Finance and Operations selected by the general memberships. So when I was a general member in the last general election, I was very involved in the elections, and I was asking the candidates questions, all the candidates, and I was wondering, I can't ask any question to someone that I'm giving $70 per term. Where is the money going? What's your plan for the money? There was VP Student Life, President, VP Internal, VP External. It's not a question for them. So as a general student, I find no one to ask that particular question. So that was the striking point. Then I get in the position and found that maybe something is wrong. Maybe it is happening now, but it might happen year before, because after other student union executives throughout the country, I found that we are far behind. Most of them elect their VPFO and they're doing good. And for some reasons, there are lots of arguments made that we need to make it elected rather than make it nominated rather than elected. I think you have every argument in every side of the coin, but we need to choose the better one. The better one is the student need to have their voice, and I think someone talked about a good speaking ability, convincing the people, having a good campaign, and I know it's more easy to convince 40 people rather than 18,000 people. So, because I did that. So I'm not trying to do who is trying to get the next position, making his or her life hard, but I want to make sure that every student have their opinion that who is handling their money and actually what is the vision with the money. It's not the person, because it's not the person who is selecting in the general election. Students need to know what's the vision of that particular person with the money. What is his priority or her priority with the money? So that needs to be addressed, and I think it's a good chance for us to make a decision today. And apart from the DSU, how it works, we have a good accounting department in the operations. We have a very good staff support. They're very experienced. So I think if we make this move, it is not a good problem for running DSU operations smoothly. Rather than it will make DSU empowerment of the students and a good way to show that DSU is a pure democratic body. Thank you.
Izan is actually next on the list, so that's perfect.
So I guess I'll just speak and then.
I should say, if you want to extend time, then you should do that first. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to put forward a motion to extend time limit by 10 minutes.
Okay.
At least.
Okay, by Mohammed. Does anyone have any other suggestions? Anyone else? Just shout it out. Who can speak to that? I'm sitting here. I don't know people standing outside. Hold on. So the question is, how many people are here now? I'd say there are about 25 empty seats, 10 people standing up, so maybe we're 15 short right now. It's difficult for me to take note of hands in. Right. So there are 3 minutes left in the debate. The motion is to extend time by 10 minutes. When is this ending? The thing downstairs? Right. Okay. I see. Proceed. Okay. So anyone who votes needs one of these bracelets. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep that in mind. Like, there'll be time to process people's bracelets to clean. Okay. Does anyone have any other suggestions then? Okay. So if there's no further discussion, then the motion is to extend time by 10 minutes to close discussion at 8:24. So we'll move to a vote. You know what? We need to vote. We need a quorum to vote on stuff. Excuse me, I'd like to be able to hear the student speak. Well, the rule is that the discussion ended. It was sent at 8:14, and in the absence of that, the rule still applies. It's not that the rules fall apart. It's just that we're not able to vote. It's just that we're not able to vote on things. So. Yes, William. That's what Robert's rule says, but it's superseded by the union rules, which provide that if there's no quorum, then it can continue on in the form of a forum until such time as a vote needs to come up for a vote. And so I have options at the time, either to adjourn, recess for 15 minutes, or to recess for 15 minutes to enable people to come in to vote. It's in the, here, I'll pull it up for you. I'm not being sarcastic. So this is the Union Rules Procedures Policy. This is the section on governing general meetings and quorum, 6A, or section 6. If the quorum is present, 6C, if quorum is present at the meeting, some members leave, reducing the number of those present to 75, the chair of council may only, 1, recess the meeting for no more than 15 minutes in an attempt to achieve quorum, And or 2, move to set a time of the next meeting and adjourn. Or 3, move to continue the meeting in the form of a forum. So we've been in the form of a forum the entire time on my unstated motion, right? Because in the interest of keeping things moving along. Well, the point is that in the absence of any other direction from students present, we were supposed to end the date at 8:14. And so, unfortunately, we can't vote. But now, we want to recess for the purpose of getting quorum to extend the discussion. And so, Jen wants to speak.
Can we just continue? Can you decide to continue in the mode of a forum?
Well, yes, but the point is that the discussion will end at 8:14, and given that we've been speaking about this for 5 minutes, I would say that we have another 5 minutes after this slightly frivolous discussion to continue the discussion on the merits of electing the VPFO. So in the absence of any more suggestions, we'll have 5 more minutes to discuss it. We can't vote on anything without quorum. That's just how it is. Caitlin. We can't vote on anything without quorum, right? Right, so that's why I'm saying that we're going to speak for 5 more minutes, and then probably we'll recess in an attempt to get people in to establish quorum. And then maybe at that point we want to talk more, right? Maybe at that point we want to hear more people speak. Yeah. So, absent any further discussion on that, we're going to extend the time by 5 minutes. So 8:21, and I have Yazen. Actually, you were next on the list, so I'll give the floor to you.
Well, on that note,
Sorry, I just want to be able to hear Yazan speak.
So I understand that everybody's a bit distracted right now with the issue of quorum and whatnot. I'll go back to the whole discussion, and that is about the VPFO. And again, the issue that was raised was, can an elected VPFO handle the technical stuff? And if you look at what the VPFO does now, what a VPFO does now is basically supervise the staff members who handle the technical stuff, right? So what that means basically is that all they do is make sure that the technical stuff are being handled by those who can do that. And I think that students, to be able to have someone who represents them directly in that supervision process, to say, can we do this instead because that's what the students want, to the people who actually know the technical stuff. I think that's important. And to answer or to address rather, the issue of whether or not it's the current system is representative, to a certain extent it is, but I mean, we want the maximum, we want to be represented as much as we can and not simply settle to a minimum form of representation. So those are my points.
I'll recognize Aaron. Did Aaron step out? He did step out. If he comes back, then we'll insert him back in the speakers list. So I'll recognize Michael now.
Very quickly, first of all, I was amazed that there was a position that wasn't voted in council. I think that when you look at it, you vote everybody else. So to not vote that position is kind of asinine to me. There was questions raised about whether or not it would be a popularity thing or who you would get for the right job. That's what your rules and your MOA and all that stands for. If they have stuff in there stating that the person put up for that position must have some sort of background or something that guarantees the security of them doing that job, then I think that takes care of whoever anybody is going to put forward. So I think that that's what your rules and regulations are for. It should be open. All positions should be voted for. That's just my opinion.
Seeing how Aaron's not yet here, I'll recognize Ellie.
Hi everyone, my name is Ali Caladine. I'm one of the Senate reps on council. I'm going to try to speak with 2 hats here. First, I'm going to try to speak as the chair of the Board of Operations on some technical stuff, and then I'm going to give my personal opinion on the issue. So, the Board of Operations is a board that runs alongside DSU Council that tries to manage the operational, fiscal, and legal parts of the union. It does a lot of background work, and it really takes the time to look into things to make sure that we're not doing things that don't make any sense. So at the last Board of Operations meeting, we discussed this process. We've already seen the motion to have the VPFO be an elected position, and we recommended that Council send it to the AGM. We also looked over something that was originally called a vetting process, but what we ended up recommending is not so much of a vetting process as much as it is a way to ensure that the people who are getting elected as VPFO, if this motion were to go through, would be truly qualified, and to make sure that everybody voting on the position would have enough information. So I'm not a voting member on the Board of Operations, but what this group of people looked into and decided to recommend was that we instigate a process where people would be asked questions, and they would be interviewed by fellow students. They'd be asked technical questions, and nobody would be barred from running, but we would be able to publish a document that would inform voters as to whether the people were able to answer the technical questions or not. And the Board of Operations feels that this is a way that we could have the VPFO be an elected position and still ensure that we have someone in the spot who absolutely knows what they're doing, because it'll be so easy for students to get informed. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that, because I thought it was pretty key to the issue. And I can definitely take a question on it in a second. I just want to give my personal opinion as well. I think that I never understood why this isn't a position that's elected. I think that it was really easy to see the VPFO as someone who just pushes papers around on a desk, but I mean, we can look at the job that Mabu's doing this year, and he's making so many fundamental changes to how our union runs, and I really believe that one of the biggest purposes of a union is being able to take people's money in and collectively decide how to allocate it out to defend our students when it comes to advocacy, to provide amazing services, and to really empower students to take that money and do things that they care about. Those things are all inherently political, and they should be chosen and formed and structured by somebody who we vote for, not by someone who's elected in a room that is sort of attended about as much as this meeting has been thus far. Does anyone have any questions on the Board of Operations side of things?
I don't know if we can get to those because
Okay.
it's 8:21.
Okay, I just saw a hand, and I didn't want people to be confused.
They would have 10 seconds to speak, so I don't know if that would be very fruitful.
Okay.
So thank you, Ellie. Okay, so the time for debate has been exhausted, and now the issue is whether or not we have quorum. And so as I look around the room, I see, this is a very rough guess. First of all, perhaps for ease of counting, maybe I would ask if there are any individuals in here who are not voting students, who are not eligible to vote, maybe just to stand on the side there, and that anyone with a bracelet just to take a seat, just so that I can more easily gauge whether or not we need to take a break to get more people in here. Aaron, how many people are in the hall out there?
4.
Okay. Okay. I'm seeing maybe a dozen seats here. If you've got a bracelet, I'd ask you to have a seat, please. I like this guy. Okay, let's have a count. Let's have a formal count. I'd like to be able to hear Ali speak. Of course. I don't count for the purpose. Oh, I do count for the purpose of quorum. You're quite right. So okay. Don't mind me. I have 60. Yeah. Sorry, 58, 57. I mistakenly counted the people on the wall. So, Aaron, are you moving? Would you like me to recess in an attempt to find more people? Is that what you want to do?
Yes, there's someone went over to the sustainability lecture again, and so there's a chance we might get.
Okay, so 5 minutes is what we need? Do we need 5 minutes? Like, okay, so hold on. What do we have to do here? We have to go across the street to the McCain. Yeah, right now, eh? Okay, so let's take a short 10-minute recess for the purpose of achieving quorum. We'll come back in 10 minutes, everyone. No, no, no. So here's what happened. I want you to feel the decision. So I want you to guaranteed enough. So it's a quorum. You're right. Right. I can recess.
I'll double the space.
No more than 15 minutes.
Captain Trifloor.
Just had 20 minutes. Check. Hey, everyone. Hi, Keith. I'd ask if you have, hey, what's up? I'd ask if you have a bracelet to have a seat. And if you don't have a bracelet, please just remain standing. How many people are out in the hall there? A lot. Okay. Let's have a quorum call. So let's have everyone take their seats who has a bracelet, please. There are some seats up here on both rows. I'll announce once if there's anyone in the hall who has a bracelet already to I'll invite them in. I'm not sure if they can hear me. Keith, there's a seat up here, eh? Well, I want everyone with a bracelet to sit down just so that I can have an easy quorum vote. Don't mind me when I'm counting, but okay. I have 77 people sitting. 75 is the quorum. I'll recognize Caitlin Lowe.
I would like to make a motion that JD, the mover of the motion, make a summary no more than 3 minutes in length about the discussion that took place, the motion itself, and then allow the chance for at least 3 comments, no more than a minute to a minute and a half each, to sum up the whole discussion that took place, and then have a motion vote.
I'll recognize the individual here. What's your name, please? Joe Johnson. Thank you. Awesome. So just to clarify, you want John to speak for 3 minutes, then at least three other people 1 minute each. Is that what you said? Up to three. Okay. Does anyone else have any other suggestions as to how we should continue with the debate? Okay, so Yazan's called the question. There's no one on the speakers list. So the motion before the floor is to allow John Hutton, the mover of this motion, to provide for the election of the VPFO an additional 3 minutes to speak to the merits of the amendment, and then for up to 3 individuals, no more than a minute each, a minute and a half each, thank you, the opportunity to speak in opposition to that. Okay, so this is the motion before students at this point. Does everyone understand what we're voting on? To extend the time? Does anyone not understand what we're voting on or what's going on right now? Is there anyone like, okay, so I'll explain it again. So we've just had about 30 minutes of debate as to whether or not to elect a member of the executive, the Vice President of Finance and Operations. The VPFO is responsible for various things, financial. Currently, that person is appointed by council, and council consists of about 42 individuals, some of whom are elected, some of whom are appointed by the various faculties and societies. And so this amendment would say that the student body elects the VPFO as a whole. And so the individual who moved this motion, who brought it up for debate, is a, that's not the motion. That's the rule book. This is the motion. The individual who moved that sits on council. His name is John Hutton. He's a senator. And board of that's not the first time I've done that, eh? So you're a board of governors rep. That's right. Okay. And it actually anyway. And so Caitlin Lowe, who also sits on council, has moved because debate has already expired for this to allow John an additional 3 minutes to talk about it, to talk about why he thinks that this is a good idea to elect the VPFO. And then Caitlin says, okay, we're going to allow 3 more people. No more than a minute and a half each, the chance to speak in opposition to that. In other words, to say why we should continue to appoint the VPFO in the manner that that person is appointed. So does everyone understand what's going on and what we're voting on? Does anyone not understand what's going on and what we're voting on? Okay, so I'm satisfied that no one is brave enough to say that they don't know what's going on. So the motion before the floor, as I said, is to allow John 3 minutes and then 3 more people 1.5 minutes each to speak. And I've solicited other suggestions, but Yazan, another member of council, called the question, meaning that he ended debate on it. So we're just voting on this. And so the motion again is to allow John 3 minutes and 3 other people 1.5 minutes. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I've neglected to recognize a point of order from Hannah before we vote. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you guys all coming here since we didn't have quorum, but I kind of have an issue with you guys voting even though you weren't here for the debate because we just had a 2-hour meeting. So the rules on quorum are when quorum was called to question, which it was after the meeting started, that we have 3 options, and one of them is to move to a recess for 15 minutes and try and find quorum. Another one is to set a new time and adjourn, and another one is to move into a forum. So we opted to move into a forum, and we had all of our formal debate in a forum. And then, so my point of order is I don't think it's proper to move now back into a formal meeting. I think, as per Robert's rules, it's really important to have debate in a meeting, and I think that should happen with quorum.
Okay, so Hannah has raised a point of order as to my discretion as chair in terms of how we can proceed here. And so I think you want to speak against that. Is that the point of why you want to speak?
My point of order was that we opted to go back.
Right. So I'll dispose of this point of order. So Hannah's saying that I don't actually have any discretion to move back into a more formal meeting where we actually can vote on things. So if you see here, if quorum is present at the beginning of the meeting, which happened, and some members leave, reducing the number of those present to below 75, also happened, the chair of council may only, and then it sets out 3 things. 1, recess the meeting for no more than 15 minutes in an attempt to achieve quorum, and or 2, move to set a time of the next meeting and adjourn the meeting, and or 3, move to continue the meeting in the form of a forum. So the way that I read that in the and I'm looking at Keith, the plain meaning of the text is that this gives me the discretion to do any of these things in any order. That's how I read the plain text of this motion. And so when Hannah raises the point of order that I don't have the discretion to choose 3 and then flip up back to 1, I would say that that point of order is not sustained. If anyone wishes to disagree with me, then this would be the time to do it.
I'm on your side, Andrew.
I see William.
I'd like to raise the question if the process as it's currently defined on point C, 1, 2, and 3, if we follow what you're saying, does that mean hypothetically there's a possibility of having a meeting which has no endpoint and continuing on from the beginning when we did have quorum and then just go on forever until we do reach quorum? Is that how we should understand it?
No. Okay, so the question has been called whether or not to extend the amount of time for debate. And I've explained it 3 times, I'll explain it a 4th time. Caitlin has moved to allow John the ability to speak for 3 more minutes as to why he thinks that we should elect the VPFO, and then to allow up to 3 people 1.5 minutes, the chance to speak in opposition to that. And so, barring any further comments or points of order, we'll move to a vote. And I'm trying to remember if it requires a majority or 2/3. And I'm going to say that it requires a majority because to extend the time for debate is a majority. That's what it says in Robert's Rules and in the union policy. So let's move to a vote. So all those in favor of extending the time for debate in the manner described, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? William. Anyone else? Okay, William dissented, so that's fine. Okay, so I'd invite John Hutton to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
The motion. Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's really, really appreciated. This is a big decision we're making tonight. So what we're voting on tonight is whether or not the VP Finance of the Dalhousie Student Union should be elected or appointed by councillors. So what the position actually is, it oversees a budget of $2.6 million of your money. Each of you pay more than $100 a year to this union, and the person who's the VP Finance has the highest level decision-making power over how that money is spent. So it's things like the food services in the sub, Tiger Patrol, all sorts of things like orientation week spending. There's lots of different things that the student union maintains, including like the Greywood, all sorts of staff. It's a really important decision. And so the way it's currently done is there's a committee that council appoints called the nominating committee. They do job applications in the winter and then make recommendations to council and is elected there. So there's about 40-ish students that represent each of you from your faculty. So it's like arts, science type of stuff. The reason I want to make it elected is because the current reason for making it appointed is not adequate. They're saying we want to make sure that the VP Finance always has lots of technical experience. And so the arguments I made earlier tonight was that the current process does not guarantee that, and elections do not actually cause chaos. Students can actually be trusted to make responsible decisions. That's why we elect every other position in the union, and every other university of Dalhousie's size or in the U15 also elects their VP Finance, and they're doing just fine. So what it comes down to is budgets set the priorities of the union. It decides what we should be doing. And the VP Finance has a vote on the Student Union Council, has a vote on the executive. It's an inherently political position, and because it's a political decision, that political decision should be made by students and every student. And so that's why I want this position to be elected. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Before we moved to recess, there were 3 individuals on the speaking list. I'd ask them in order if they wish to speak in opposition to the motion, barring which I'll solicit other people to speak in opposition. So, Anthony, did you wish to speak in opposition to the motion? You were on the speaker's list. Is he here? He's outside in the hall. Well, he's not here, so in opposition to the motion. Okay, Tevin? Okay. Well, unfortunately, the motion that was passed doesn't allow me to recognize you to speak for that purpose. And then I have Caitlin. No? Okay. Okay. So is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the motion? So I see in opposition to the motion, that's correct. And up to 3 individuals can do that. Don't be shy, people. Be brave. I have Hannah. Okay, so that's fine. You can come up and speak, and then I'll solicit people afterwards.
All right, hey everybody again. So basically, I think that while it's important that students' voices are heard, I think due to the technical nature of the VP Finance role, it's really important that there's someone in that position that really understands financials, financial documents, and all of those job requirements that come with that. So as society is putting your audits in and getting those back, you want someone who has the know-how to be able to do that and do that really well. I think that it's not hard to make mistakes in a budget, and it's really hard to redeem those and fix that. So I think it's really important that someone with the technical know-how is in the position. I also think it's really that going through a nominating committee gives the people voting a chance to ask specific questions and have that discussion. I think when you open it to a general membership, not everyone voting is going to have that opportunity or the knowledge of the candidate. They may vote for them because they saw them doing campaigning on the street or they handed them a flyer, and I think that's not sufficient for the VP Finance election.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the motion? Don't be shy, people. This is the time to step up. No one's gonna think that you're, that guy or that girl or whatever. William?
Hi. I'd like to just say that morally, I'm completely in agreement with this policy and with this amendment. My current objection is mostly just because I don't feel like an actual process that is correct to the spirit of how a general meeting should operate for any student body has been followed. So that's why I'm going to be objecting to the motion, but I agree with most everything that Hutton and other people who have spoken to the issue have been following with.
Anyone else? I'm going to stand here until Caitlin. Okay. Okay. So I'm very, very hesitant to allow you to call the question on your own after you were the one who suggested the debate. I'm going to enforce your own motion. So I can't count. So that was William and then Hannah and. Well, you haven't given me time to solicit additional people, right? That's the point. So I'm going to allow one other person to speak in opposition to the motion. Yes, Jamel. Yes, but I feel very uncomfortable allowing the person who moved to extend the debate, right, to call the question. And so I don't think it's a huge point of I don't think it hugely prejudices those in favor of this motion to allow one other person the opportunity to speak a minute and a half. And I'll recognize Jeremy. Excuse me. I recognize Taylor or Jeremy. Okay, let's debate that then. Are people comfortable with cutting off the third person? Okay. So we're going to have a vote on this because it seems to be pretty contested. It seems to me that there are people who would like to speak in opposition to the motion for a minute and a half, and we'll move to a vote as to whether or not to allow those people to speak. Do you have a point concerning debating whether or not we should have an additional person speaking? See, the way this works is that once you move something and it's seconded, it's not really yours anymore. It belongs to the floor. Okay, so you don't have the ability to withdraw your own motion once it's been seconded. That's the whole point. And so we're going to have to vote whether or not to hear this third person speaking. So is there any debate as to whether or not we should hear this third person speak, or do you people just want to move to a vote? You humans, Caitlin. See, the problem with all these motions willy-nilly is that it confuses a lot of people, right? So the only motion that's before the floor is whether or not to cut off debate. And if the issue is whether or not another person is going to speak in opposition to this, not that one. This isn't a mob thing, right? This is right. It's not like we go by the whims of whoever seems to want to speak, right? We have to have a vote on these things. So Keith.
I would move to call the question on the motion allowing the person to speak.
Okay. Well, there was someone else on the speakers list, and I believe that was yourself, Mohammed. Okay, so let's move to a vote then. So the question is whether or not we allow a third person to speak. If you vote if you vote yes, then well, this is confusing now, isn't it? Let's just say if you vote yes, you allow the person to speak, and if you vote no, you say they don't speak, and then we vote directly on this motion. Okay. So if you want to hear more debate, vote yes. If you don't want to hear any more debate, vote no. Does everyone understand what we're voting on? Does anyone not understand what we're voting on? Okay. So all those in favor of limiting debate, no, of extending debate, yeah. Please raise your hand. Ugh.
Do you want to hear
Please keep your hands up, and please keep silent while I count the vote, please, sir. Please keep your hands high. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the motion carries. So let's hear the third person talk.
So I feel one of the most salient points that could possibly be spoken in opposition to this is, as an appointed position, those doing the appointing are not unaccountable to the students. They are accountable. Many of them are generally elected by the students. Many of them represent various committees protecting the interests of certain students, which. Oh, am I? Sorry. And, you know, some of them are members of the faculty, sort of to ensure ties between them. This isn't a group that is a ring of elitist insiders. This is, in part, the people that we are electing that are representing the interests of the students, that are representing the interests of some students that might be drowned out by a large, full general election. And I don't feel that it's a completely cut and dry issue, just for that reason. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now this is the vote as to whether or not to adopt the amendment. The amendment would provide for the election of the Vice President of Operations. A no vote would defeat that amendment and maintain the current selection process, which is appointment by council. We've had ample debate on both sides. We've extended the debate a couple of times, and thankfully we have quorum now, and I'd like to thank everyone for showing up on this important issue. And so I guess this is the time to move for a vote. We'll be voting by show of hands unless anyone objects. And in that case, now I'll ask anyone who wishes to vote in favor of the amendment providing for the election of the VPFO to raise their hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like... Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Hannah, how did you vote? Anyone else? William? Dissent? Anthony? How did you vote? Abstention? Anyone else? Hema? Dissent? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Moving on with the agenda. This is the point where we have the opportunity to ask questions of the executive. I introduced them earlier. Rams Aziz is the president.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Pizza, take some home.
Yeah.
Clean us out. Take everything.
Before that, I would like to just move very quickly to thank Andrew for dealing with that whole hullabaloo. I think he deserves a round of applause for that.
Thanks, Keith. You're a good guy. So I know, let's just wait till everyone clears out who doesn't want to be here. So this isn't exactly the end of the meeting. This is the time to ask questions for any of the executive members. I see a lot of people are sticking around to ask questions, so I'll ask anyone who's planning on leaving just to make their way out quietly. I'll recognize Michael. Zilch. Okay. So let's. I don't particularly feel like moderating questions in terms of executive by executive. So if you have a question for any of the executives, whether it be Rams Aziz, the president, Mabu Rahman, the VP Finance and Operations, Jen Nowoselsky, the VP Internal, or Jacqueline Skiptunis, the VP Academic External, please feel free to come up to the mic and ask a question concerning anything you may have about the union, its activities, what's going on. And if you don't know who to address your question to, that's even better because it's an opportunity for you to learn who's responsible for what. So, Mohammed, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, so I don't know who. What? Here. Oh, look, louder. Okay, so I don't know who to actually go to when we're trying to organize society events. I've gone through the booklet. I've booked rooms. I had an event booked yesterday. I had professors show up. had students show up. It was poli-sci. We were screening Argo. We had free popcorn. We were enjoying the movie, and then halfway through the movie, someone came in and told us that we'd been cross-booked with an exam. No, but we booked through the DSU, and it was no kind of throw. So we had no idea what was going on. I got a phone call from facilities management saying we had the room till 9 o'clock, and we finished risk management. We did everything. It was a long and painful process, but we were willing to do it because I appreciate that you have to do it to ensure security of students and all that. But we don't know. I don't know personally. I'm VP events, but I still don't know who to go to with regards to society events and what happens if there's a problem. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's me. If you book a room in the student union building, then we have control over what happens there. Because you booked in a different building, that's the university. So we don't have control over the cross booking and that kind of thing, and I'm really sorry that that happened. We are able to like advocate on your behalf and do things like that, and so if you want to come and talk to me or Holly McDonald, our society coordinator, either of us would be really happy to help you talk to the right people to make sure that that doesn't happen again. That's not okay.
And
Thank you.
do you also have access to that email thread where you booked the room?
I got it through phone call from facilities management.
If you remember any names, please bring them to Holly and Jen so we know who that is. Who you booked with. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question, Hannah? Did I see your hand earlier? No, Christine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if this is the proper forum to bring this up in, but like it's frustrating me, so why not? On the topic of room bookings, myself, along with a lot of my societies under DAS, have had so many problems getting in contact with the society coordinator, either not getting their emails back or going in person and being told to email. And I just really want to bring that up and find out if there are any extenuating circumstances that are happening behind the scenes that are, because it is limiting the functions of societies in the school, and I just think that's probably not a good call. That's it.
Yeah, totally. Is it when you're trying to book rooms in the student union building?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really happy that you brought that to my attention. I didn't realize that that was happening. But I'll talk to them, and then maybe if you can give me your email address, I can email you with what's happening and if there's any reason, and regardless, we'll clear that up so that that isn't a thing. I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else is free, by all means, to come up to the mic. This is an open forum. Yeah.
Okay, so Andrew, I'm not sure if you're gonna let me be able to do this, but I have a question and it goes to each of the executives. And all I want is you guys to say your biggest obstacle that you guys have been facing this fall semester. As chair of the ERC, I'm going to be talking with all about that anyway, but I thought it might be interesting for the other students present and those watching to understand maybe some of the difficulties that have been going on this semester.
So I guess I'll start. For me, the biggest obstacle is relying on certain staff members to get things done that are delegated to them in a timely and detailed fashion.
I think I'm fine. There is no biggest challenge, but sometimes there is. It seems that lots of things in my plate, and like every other person, I have 24 hours a day. Then I wish I could have more hours. I work for more in some days or in some weeks. But other than that, I think I'm having a good time.
Yeah, I would say that my biggest obstacle so far, and it has been a really big obstacle, is having supportive staff members that are reliable in what they say that they're going to do. Yeah, it's been a big obstacle.
I like talking here a lot better. I think my biggest obstacle so far has been prioritizing things and time management. I think being enrolled as a full-time student, And the nature of this position specifically, it's a bit more difficult to pick exactly what it is that you want to focus on and how you want to engage people with it. It's not as cut and dry as I might have hoped it would be.
Do you have a question back there? Mohammed? No? Me? Yeah. No? William?
Okay, I'm just wondering, so this year with how things are happening, well, basically over the summer we established, or at the end of last year, I guess, we established the Equity and Accessibility Office as a permanent function after having a year's pilot program of it last year. I'm just wondering what's happening with it, because I haven't been hearing anything to come out of it other than there was a training on it, a training that they provided, an anti-oppression training that they took part in, at least in part, like last week, 2 weeks ago or so. But I haven't really been hearing anything about their involvement or activity within the union or within the university as a larger entity. So I'm just wondering, because they were like trying to be very active and involved in the community last year, especially around this time of year with the Halloween stuff they did and other stuff that they did throughout the year last year. So just wondering if anyone can speak to that, just because we haven't heard a peep out of them, really.
Yep. So we have 2 staff members for our Equity and Accessibility Office. They've been organizing regular trainings on anti-oppression that are open to all societies. They've also been they organized a panel on rape culture recently. They've been working with the university, specifically the Office of Human Rights, on the campaign that they're put out this month. Yeah, so they've been really active. They're pulling together a few different. They're going to do a wide-reaching campaign, like it was done last year, where all of the societies were included. Do you remember the Unlearn campaign? There will be something similar to that. They're also working on a grievance process right now, so that any students or societies that have grievances will have like a clear process on how to go through that office, and then if they have a grievance with the union or with the university, they'll be able to have a clear idea of which channels to go through. Yeah, they've been working on a lot.
I'll ask this, and you might not be able to answer me. It might be one that I have to actually take directly to them. But just to jump on that question, in all of this working, do you know how much that they've actually brought in actual, like the societies or the groups or the organizations that are, identified as the minority ethnics and that there?
I don't know the exact numbers or anything like that. I would really encourage you to go and talk to them.
But anyhow, no, yeah. That's why I'm asking, because I know. But anyway, I'll talk to them. But I just wanted to know what your answer would be to that.
Yeah. In terms of the grievance side of things, I don't know the exact numbers of how many people have gone to them with grievances so far. But
no, I don't. I just mean about even coming up with their policies and that, because unless it's changed, my understanding is the 2 people that hold the positions are both Caucasian, are they not?
Yeah, and
so I'm just actually talking to the people that they're supposed to be making these policies for. So I just wanted to know if you knew who they had approached.
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with a question? It doesn't have to be a question. You could, we're talking about grievances. You can air your grievances now. That's another thing. Yeah.
Doesn't specify we get the questions. So I'm just wondering, since we have time now, if anyone has any questions, to invite them about what just happened. Like if anyone has any concerns or questions about that. I'm not saying that you necessarily do, I'm just saying that now is when you can ask them to. It's what? Yeah.
This is hard. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, executives. I'm going to sit down. Yeah, I'm still processing that whole procedure. And I mean, I think that there were good things and bad things about it. I don't think that, in my opinion, there were enough bad things about it to like do and to like exclusively criticize it. And I'm really excited that we're electing the VPFO. And I think that all things considered, everyone in the room at least did hear both sides of the argument. And like, I feel good about that. Having said that, what my biggest concern is at this point, there's still a huge number of students in this university who don't know about this process and who don't know about all of the work that you guys have been doing to make this happen. And I think that we really need a group of people, including the executives, including people who are not executives, to really get out there and like communicate what should have been communicated before the AGM, but communicate it now in reference to what decision we've made. I think that we need to be talking to students. We need to be explaining that this is a change that's happened and what the pros and cons of it are and how to move forward and what it's going to look like come election time. I think that it has to be a priority for the rest of the semester to make sure everyone knows what happened tonight, because it's really exciting. I think it's really important, and I think that people would be excited about it. They should know about it.
Did I see a hand over here? Yazana, and then Tim.
So last year when voter turnout was about 11%, and quorum today was an issue, right? And obviously there's an overwhelming problem at this moment in terms of student participation. I was wondering what the executive is planning to do about that. And I support, of course, Ali's points. They were very constructive, and building on it, what does the executive plan to do?
In terms of informing students on what happened tonight, is that? Okay.
So our strategy is to start early. So we've already been having discussions in the executive about it. So I think the best approach would honestly be a grassroots one. Similar, like when campaign time rolls around, there's so much energy on campus. There's so much vibrancy. People are running around everywhere. There's color. There's activity. There's hubbub and buzz. But that's only for 1 week, and that's not enough people to even know what the hell's going on. So we want to start that early. So what we're planning to do is to have a street team ready, have the elections committee actually just start campaigning like for the elections actually, and kind of build on the idea that was mentioned by I think I can't remember who actually said it last night at the council meeting around a festival of elections. You know, try to make a big thing out of it. So I try to make it like an event that we start hyping up starting next month. And that's why it's so imperative that we have to start a CRO, so we can actually start plugging in not only just in the month of March, but we'll have banners ready, we'll have flyers ready. It'll be like a big thing that we'll try to hype up, and hopefully we'll try to get societies on board in advance of that. So, yeah.
I think, can I add to that?
Sorry, no, you're in the process of answering the question, sorry.
Oh. So about the election, I think this year we council appointed CRO in proper time, and the election committee will be set up really early rather than last year, so they have enough time to plan for the election. And apart from that, from finance side, I want to say that for I don't know, for maybe some reason for last 2 years, I can say that whatever the budget for the election was, half of the budget was not spent, more than half. So maybe there was reasoning behind that, but it indicates that we had resources allocated to the election and it was not utilized. So this year, one of my priority would be assign those proper resources to the election committee, so then they can have a proper election from finance point of view.
I do want to point out one thing. Just after noticing today and mentioning to Aaron earlier today that approach is a really huge key thing when it comes to students and as far as educating them. And you can't make it seem like are lecturing them or like, if I said earlier, it's like more of like, if you just hand a piece of paper, what's the chances of them even reading that piece of paper? They're going to glance at it for like 5 seconds and then just toss it. I mean, so you could utilize word of mouth to your advantage, because I mean, everyone talks. So I mean, it's more common than just people check their emails, they just ignore it. You know, so that's one of the suggestions I wanted to point out earlier. I don't know. I think it'd be very beneficial, and yeah, and street team is very good. Good idea. I like. But
it still goes back to approach. So different approaches to different people, right? So, okay. Thank you.
It's just a quick suggestion, honestly, to the exec, I guess. O week is huge. Everyone, I remember everything from my O week. I remember everything from my O week leadership. If you guys can advertise the DSU, like when I came here, I remember my first year, last year, when I came in, everyone was when I thought DSU, I just thought it was this building. I didn't even know there was an exec, and I remember just seeing people's pictures on the walls. So advertising it during O week, advertise to the first years, the key moments like homecoming, O week, all the big events that are recognized by DAL. Just say when AGM is, say when elections are, say what you guys are. That'll be huge for them, and they'll remember it because you'll remember the big events and you remember what's been brought up in the big events. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
I love that you said that, and I'm wishing that inshallah next year after we use this new election promotion model, that staff will automatically begin doing this, so that when the new executive come in, they'll probably learn what the hell's going on by the July, but that doesn't matter because staff have already prepared everything to go out for O week and homecoming.
The individual with the glasses. Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch your name. Jesse.
My name is Jesse. I'd like to field a question from Twitter. Jessica Dempsey has asked, what happened to the Trans Students Issues Committee and preferred name policy for trans students?
Preferred name policy, to my knowledge, is being implemented, and it has been on BB Learn at least. I know, JD, can you speak to this? Thank you.
So, for context, for everyone in the room, there was a last winter semester in a council meeting, there's a motion passed to create a Trans Student Issues Committee of the DSU Council, so that issues facing transgender students could be addressed in sort of a forum that would be somewhat official, and it can be taken to the administration, try to improve policies around Dalhousie, but also within the union. And the issue that we've had over the summer trying to get the thing struck in was that there's no trans students on council. So having a bunch of non-trans people sitting in a committee talking about how to save the trans people seems really awkward. So what we've been doing since the fall semester started was going to things like the DALOUT AGM and holding actions such as that. Jessica Dempsey organized a rally recently, so we've been trying to collect a list of trans students that want to get involved. And the current DALOUT rep on DSU Council, Derek Rogers, has been working on trying to get things going. I'm not sure if he's actually had a meeting recently because I think he's been busy with exams, but he is on it and would love to work with you more, Jessica. Thanks.
Yes, I spoke with Derek, and he's actually in the process of drafting the terms of reference for that committee to be passed at council, hopefully in the next couple of council meetings. Yes, but I think he said he would be working on maybe perhaps amended ones, or I think he'd be contacting JD about that. Okay, so yeah, so Derek's working on that. So.
Okay, so this is probably not the appropriate time to bring this up, but we were talking about elections and it reminded me. Last year, when there was a few candidates running for elected positions, and they scheduled times in our class to come and speak to our class. And one time it was 2 candidates had scheduled it, one time it's 1, and no one showed up. So our prof showed up 10 minutes late, saying, "Oh, was someone here?" And no one had shown up. So I was wondering if there was a way we could address that in the upcoming elections. This would not waste class time. It also portrays a really bad image of the DSU if all you see of them is no one showing up to your class.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We'll think of some ways to hold some accountability there for candidates. Peter, you have some ideas? Yeah, Jen?
I was just going to say, I think that, sorry, Hannah, I can't see you. I was going to say, my meetings on Sexton were canceled last minute. So the professors emailed me and said, on all of the Sexton classrooms, actually, no, you can't come. And so I think that it's a much bigger conversation outside of campaigning accountability, where we should have conversations the same. I had a lot of problems with Carleton as well in getting into those classrooms. And so I think that there is a larger conversation with faculty and what that looks like to be able to present in those classes.
did you want to answer that question, or did you have a question?
I was just
because
adding a possibility that could be addressed.
Okay, yeah.
Well, if you're concerned about the candidates not showing up to their meetings, the quickest solution to that is if somebody has a meeting, is scheduled to come in front of the class and speak, tell the students who's scheduled to come up and show up in front of them. It's a really automatic accountability mechanism right there. Oh, okay.
Did you want to say that as well, Jen? Yeah.
I agree with what Jen said when there has to be saying that there does have to be a conversation with faculty, so it's a bit bigger than that. I will also say that at that point it is elections, so those people that may have missed those things, accountability-wise, are not necessarily part of the DSU yet, so that doesn't actually represent the DSU, it represents the candidates who are potentially members of the DSU. So there is a bit of a, like, I see what you're saying, but I also just need to say that they're not necessarily the people that get into office.
I have Ali.
So someone in reference to my comment earlier and just maybe the conversation we've been having, I think a big conversation this year and last is really how to get out to students about the DSU, to let them know what's going on, especially around elections and election turnout. And I think it's also really worth recognizing that I don't think there's a single person who's on the executive this year who isn't doing an incredible job and putting a lot of work into what they're doing. Like, I absolutely don't think that that's what it is. So I think that I just wanted to recognize that in my last comment. And then I wanted to ask you guys, like, since we're here formally in an AGM, people who do spend a lot of time working on stuff in the DSU, people who are here in the meeting tonight, what can we do to support you guys in reaching out to the whole student body? Because I don't think it's possible for 5 people to hit 18,000, but I think it's possible for 50 or 100 people to reach out to 18,000. Should I just put this in your hands?
Okay, I think this is incredibly appropriate at this moment. There's this thing of being critical of everything that the DSU does, and that's very, very important. It's key, and I am looking directly at you. You're hypercritical. It's a good thing. I like criticism, mostly because when you're critical, you come up with solutions. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we have to implement. So I invite criticism, but I invite criticism in the form of, here's the problem, here's what I think you should do about it. Because if we have enough people doing that, at some point we can get together, or one of us, or any of us can say, you're right, here's what went wrong, here's why it went wrong, and here's what needs to change. You have procedure, and if it's not properly implemented, maybe there's a reason it's not properly implemented, maybe it sucks. Maybe it doesn't work for this union, maybe it doesn't work for this organization, and maybe it should change. So be critical and come to us with things that you see have happened that don't happen in a way that might be orthodox, and we'll change them. And we can change them together. We can't just change them. We obviously need at least 75 people in a room to change a number of things, and we need a majority at council to change everything else. So show up when things happen, and come to us with solutions when you see problems. That's the quickest thing, because telling us that, oh, this sucks, this is horrible, what do? The moment if we give a response, it's like, oh, now you're taking control of everything. You're making a unilateral decision, and that's not something that we want to do. So there's my answer to that.
I think there is something in terms of like the first thing that came to my mind when you made that comment, Ali, is like, oh, we should have a working group of people to come together and talk about like all the things that are going on and promote that. Oh, wait, we do. It's a council. And like if every council member would have brought 2 members out to the general meeting, we would have had enough people here for quorum, right? Like we do have small working groups through council. And so like for some reason it's not working, and I'm not suggesting that that's at the fault of the council members, but there's something within that it could be really strong and it isn't, and I think it's really worth analyzing that structure and figuring out why that's not working.
So on the subject of criticisms, unsurprising really. So as I'm looking at the current DSU website, and specifically within governance stuff, we're still getting into huge issues of documentation not being posted. For example, the agenda that happened for the council meeting yesterday and all attaching items are not posted to this. As and there's also the same issue with many prior minutes and stuff. And I understand it's not the responsibility of the chair or the secretary to post those items to the website. I guess it's our communications policy, or it's our communications coordinator and stuff. At the same time, if you want items to actually be understood by the public and to have the public be well informed about what is going on, it isn't just random or people tweeting that can really explain that. It's actually putting out the documentation which shows what's happening with governance and other items onto a media where it's publicly visible. Otherwise, I guess the only appropriate thing would be for me or whoever else is interested in that stuff to go into the sub office every day to ask for what new things have come up at the coming council meeting. So like, I don't really want to do that because it's frustrating, and also I don't believe that I can actually do that at this present time. I can just walk into the council, I can walk into the DSU offices and ask for what the current agenda for the next council meeting is looking like or anything. And because I can't do that, and because it isn't posted online, it just really doesn't make me trust in how governance stuff is operating generally. Can anyone speak to that? I understand that some of the current policies and stuff is going to be changed about that with some of the policy revisions currently on the board, but currently on the table within council. But at the same time, we need to actually show that we can do this process instead of just saying we are, because for example, with issues of like the reports that councilors are supposed to give, we say that we're going to do that, but there's not been any actual following through in that. So it's just a concern, and I think the solution, to be critical, is very simple. It's you post all that content online, or you make that actually publicly available in a reasonable time frame.
I'm actually 100% agreeing with you, William. At the beginning of the year, when I was first the chair, I learned that it was the communications coordinator who put all this stuff on the website. Occasionally, I get emails from people asking for stuff, and I'm more than happy to give it to them. And I'm serious. Yeah. But it is frustrating for me as well when I send documents and they're not posted until a week after the fact. Tomorrow, the graphics coordinator, what's the name of her title? Emily's title? Graphic designer is the one who will be getting all of the everything that's built up over the past couple of weeks with detailed instructions how to put on the website. Like, I'm more than willing to do it myself, but it's not something that I'm authorized to do because of passwords and so on. So, I mean, I'm in agreement with you.
Can we possibly ask for the DSU to give the chair those powers so that they can do it as part of their process?
Jacqueline?
We're in the process right now at looking at our communications position, and I think, as we mentioned in our last council meeting, our current communications coordinator is on medical leave and has been for a week now and will be for a number of weeks going forward. I think maybe you can imagine if you're on medical leave for a month, maybe there was a period preceding that was a bit difficult or maybe a rough patch. So I would ask that you would forgive that staff member for anything that might have happened in that period if that were something that might have affected it. But I would also say that, since Andrew just mentioned that the graphic designer Emily is going to be managing that going forward, to maybe as of tomorrow evening or as of Friday afternoon, or sorry, tomorrow is Friday, as of Friday or maybe Monday morning, try and make a judgment on it then. And if things aren't going smoothly or if things haven't popped up from this meeting at that point, then maybe bring it up again. But Emily hasn't even had the opportunity to start and give it a go, so I would give her that chance.
I didn't want to criticize anyone for not posting things while they're on medical leave. Like, that's just the farthest thing that I would do. But I have criticisms from before that that I just want to make clear. I'm sure you do.
File them, please.
This is also like probably not the right forum for this, but there are a few counselors left in the room. Something that I've been thinking about for the past few weeks is receiving the council package. In the summer, it was common practice to receive it 3 days ahead of time. And so I got used to that being the routine. And then at the beginning of September, we decided that it was going to be 2 days, and it turns out that's what policy is. So that was fair. It's also we're supposed to receive it at 6:30, and our policy says that the deadline to get things in are at 6:30. So we have really high expectations of our chair, as in to create the agenda and send it out instantaneously after the deadline. So I was wondering what people's thoughts were on the deadline of sending out the council package, and if they'd be open to maybe increasing that time frame. Well, like 2 days, but then increasing further.
I'll do a lot of talking. I think that's a really good example of a solution to a problem that affects a lot of people. That's looking at something that we have. I think that would be policy, and maybe allowing a little bit more time. Like you said, 6:30 is a due time, and 6:30 as a time for an agenda to go out doesn't actually make any sense. You can't do it instantaneously. So again, if all of our councillors show up, if everybody shows up to an AGM, whatever it would take to change that, I think that's something we could implement almost immediately after a vote. I think it's a great idea.
In fact, it's a sneak peek for the next council meeting because we'll have a discussion on that union's rules and procedures. So we have some proposals. Let's see what council likes.
Anyone else? Open forum. There's still some pizza left. There's still some. I see shit. I see shit. There's some pizza left. Oh yeah. Still hungry. Dude, I eat pizza in the morning. Okay, it's like 24 hours. It's the best. Cold pizza? Cold pizza's fine. You put it in the fridge. You leave it out. It's cold. Does anyone else have any other questions? In that case, we don't need a motion to adjourn because we do need a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Amelia. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their abstentions go in the minutes? William. Thanks everyone for coming up.
The first 12 GM one in history.